Hi everyone, so this video is designed to go along with your reading of Act 3. This video should just be a couple minutes. I'm only going to take you through kind of three key passages just to make sure we're on the same page before you answer your reading questions and take the quiz. So with that being said, brief recap of what's happened in Acts 1 and 2 to get us to where we are in Act 3. If you remember, in the beginning of Act 2, George, Steve's son, has found out from Steve that Joe is actually the one who should be in jail and should have taken the fall for everything. That it was Joe all along that was telling Steve what to do, coaching him, and Joe called out sick from work, even though he wasn't sick, so that everything would be Steve's responsibility when the faulty airplane parts went out. Now, Joe has obviously been keeping this a secret, but then Kate mistakenly reveals that to be true in Act 2. She says, "Oh, Joe never gets sick. Nothing." So it's always Joe who's like there when people need him. But then this one time, he gets sick and sits this one out. Steve is kind of a weak character, and so he just does what he's told and ends up being the one to get in trouble. Now, when this gets revealed, Chris is really angry and he runs off. So now, when we begin Act 3, it's like 2 in the morning, and Joe and Kate are discussing what to do, which leads us to our first interaction. This is on page 74. I'm mostly looking in the middle here, where Jim or Joe is trying to I guess, justify or rationalize all the decisions that he's made. In other words, answer the question like why he did everything he did. Why did he let Steve take the fall? Why did he send out the parts in the first place? And he says this. He says that's the type of compromise that's always made. In a peculiar way, Frank is right. Every man does have a star, the star of one's honesty, and you spend your life groping for it. But once it's out, it never lights again. I don't think we went very far. He probably just wanted to be alone to watch his star go out. So, in other words, Joe goes on about this a little bit more as well. But Joe believes basically that he might have done the dishonest thing, but just about everyone would have made the same decision if they were in his place. And that's something that Chris, his son, is going to have to learn to live with. Um, and he basically claims, look, I made a man's decision. It might not have been right, it might not have been the best thing, but it's what had to be done in this situation. Now, this is in many ways the biggest theme of this book for Joe, at least, and it's something that Chris just doesn't buy. And the book is mainly about this debate: is it okay in some situations to do the wrong thing? And this is a really interesting thing, kind of like we've talked about at this point in our country, and now, oddly enough, even more so with schools shut down and that type of thing. And if we ever did have a situation where there was, say, a shortage on food, is it okay to kind of, whether your excuse is, well, I'm looking after my family first, or whatever the situation might be, is it okay to do something wrong? Is it okay to hurt somebody else to protect the needs of those around you? Which is what Joe claims that he's done, right? He claims, well, I might have sacrificed the life of Steve and his family. I might have sacrificed the life of the people who were hurt when my planes went down, but I looked after those who were around me. And obviously, Chris is not thrilled by this. He says this. He says, "What do I raise the dead when I put him behind bars? Then what do I do it for? We used to shoot a man who acted like a dog, but honor was real there. You were protecting something. But here, this is the land of the great big dogs. You don't love a man here, you eat him. That's the principle, the only one we live by. It just happened to kill a few people this time, that's all. The world's that way. How can I take it out on him? What sense does that make? This is a zoo, a zoo." So Chris is recognizing, look, everybody acts this way. I don't like it. He even says that he's lost respect for his father. And that he doesn't consider him his dad anymore, but he recognizes that this is something that other people do, even if it's wrong. And that leads us to, last but not least, Larry kind of posthumously gives his statement here. I'm actually going to have to pause for just 1 second and make a second video. I have a 5-minute limit. So 1 second. I'll be right back.